Well, good morning, it's me again. Now this next video is a bit different from the ones on my channel. Now because I was at the Ag South show last weekend, I've done the show as you see last Sunday, but there was a bit at the end. Now it's all about growing wheat, barley, rapeseed and that sort of thing, and the science behind it is quite well, I found it fascinating. I hope you guys find it fascinating. It's not tractors, but don't worry, I've got a few videos in the bank where it's all about stationaries and the tractors. They'll be coming back next Sunday, I hope, because I try and get 2 videos at once. Anyway, as I say, if you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up for me and think about subscribing to the channel. Button's only just down here, look, just down here. You can see it, I know. Think about pressing it for me, it'd be great if you would. Anyway, shall we go on with the video now? Thanks for now, cheerio.
Keith, let's try and get out of the wind a bit, Keith.
Okay.
And basically, what does your company offer as a service?
Well, independent agronomic advice based on scientific trials, basically.
Yep. And so, what do you offer this service to the farmer on a subscription cost?
Yes,
or
yeah, membership basis normally.
Membership only, is it? But obviously, you get that membership money back in the information you pass on.
Yeah, that's the
to.
idea. Yeah.
Okay. Can you walk through these plots? The wind's getting up.
Take you through what we've got on offer today.
That's
what we're
correct.
looking
That's
at
exactly
today.
what I want you to do here.
So, if we start down in this bottom corner, we're talking about oilseed rape.
Yep. That's a big thing now.
It is, looking at some of the problems we've got with oilseed rape, and the biggest issue we've got with oilseed rape at the moment is cabbage stem flea beetle.
Yep.
Which basically, the adults eat the plants as they're trying to establish and grow, and if they don't eat them then, they then lay eggs on them, and then the eggs hatch into maggots, and the maggots eat the plants in the summer.
Oh, God.
So it's a big issue, and going forward, what we're trying to get people to do is to look at how to work together to figure out exactly what this pest is up to, so we can find new ways to work with it, combat it, and successfully grow the rape crop. Now, what we've all got to come to terms with, unfortunately, is that we can't stop cabbage stem flea beetle with a chemical application anymore. So we can't just spray and kill them. And moving forwards, the public are not going to put up with us just spraying insecticides all the time. It's not going to happen. So we've got to find cultural ways of doing it. And that's basically what this stand's all talking about. Okay. If we move up to the next one, in the next area we're talking about fungicides for wheat, and we've got some.
We stand here.
Yeah, we're standing here out that wind is much better. It's been like an autumn day today. It's been horrible.
We're in May. Someone told me it was summer. I don't know how true that is.
Well, we were here yesterday setting up for this, and it was raining, but the sun was out occasionally, and I actually caught a little bit of tan, believe it or not. But it was reasonable. So here we've got different wheat varieties, and we've tried different fungicide programs on them. The disappointing thing at the moment is there's no disease in any of these plots, so there's nothing to see. What you'd often see if you came and looked at these wheat plots in a month's time is different levels of disease depending on what we've done with them. So that's what this is set up to show. So basically what we're saying is fungicides have a limited life. The more we use them, the less effective they are.
Of course,
and
like
as the
medicine,
like everything else. And as the new products come along, the farmers have a choice of using the old chemistry or the new. And what we're trying to say is that with the rainfall we've been having recently, the disease that's going to be dominant within all wheat crops this year is going to be septoria, and the way that they control the septoria within the wheat is basically to use these new molecules. New molecules coming along, there's quite a few. We've got Revasol, which is sold as a product called Revistar, available this year, and we've got another product which is the active is Initrek, so there are 2. Either of those 2 will be quite adequate for stopping the disease. So hopefully you'll see within these crops you've got let's just find one that's where we need to be. You've got the flag leaf coming out, which is this one here. So this individual leaf will provide roughly half of the yield of the wheat crop. So that does half of the grain filling.
Yep.
So that when that leaf's out on all of these tillers, that's the stage at which we want to put the flag leaf fungicide on, the most important treatment that will apply to the crop. If we can keep that leaf clean and keep disease out of it, then it will increase the yield of the crop by 2, maybe 3, 4 tonnes a hectare.
Really?
So well worth the timing, the application. So wheat prices at the moment roughly £200 a tonne. Most growers will be aiming to get to 10, 12 tonnes per hectare, and if we can influence that, so that application, which is going to cost you about £40 a hectare, should return about 200, maybe £600. So well worthwhile doing.
Yeah, definitely.
And what we've got here is one variety treated with different things, and then we move into a different variety treated with the same
I can see
things.
that. You can.
But basically the problem you've got here today is that there's no disease to see, which as far as a grower is concerned, that's great, that's
fantastic.
Good news. But you know, if you want to see chemicals working, we need disease to demonstrate it. So we'd have to come back in a month's time to see that.
Now, would you say that it's because of the weather this year?
Yeah, it is. It's been dry for so long.
It's dry early on, and now it's wet.
Now it's wet, so the disease is now coming up. But you see, a lot of this disease, it's like, well, cancer is an unfortunate comparison, but when people have cancer, quite often you don't know. Septoria is a disease that lives inside the plant for a long time until the symptoms come out, and then you can see it. By the time you can see it, it's often too late.
Yeah.
You can eradicate those symptoms from inside the plant, that disease from inside the plant, with the right chemistry. But what you're seeing at the moment is a nice clean crop.
Yeah.
So if we move on to the next demonstration.
And I suppose the farmer turns around and says, "Well, look, I don't need your product. Look at my yield." And then a month later, it's got
diseased
completely.
Exactly. I mean, we don't, you know, it's NIAB, we don't sell products, but what we try and do is to compare those products and then say to farmers, this is the direction we think you need to go in, this is what we think you need to use.
Yeah.
And then what they would then do is go to their agronomist or their supplier and buy what it is that they feel they need to use to protect their crop. But of course, it's the farmer's discretion what he's going to do.
Obviously. But like you said, it might be a cost now, but later on, it's going to be beneficial to the farmer. I mean, in monetary terms.
Exactly.
And work terms, really.
So a lot of the work we do would be to look at, so those decisions that we're suggesting a farmer makes, we then look at the consequences of that and how it would affect the crop and what would happen going forward.
Yeah.
So this next stop is looking at soil.
And they're taking it down, I can see there.
They're taking it down
as we speak.
But we can still see the soil profile that's been dug out.
Oh, right, yes.
David here is our soil expert.
David's the one with the drill, was he, or the younger man?
So Dave, basically what we've looked at looking at here, so this farmer doesn't move his soil anymore. So he'll plant his crops with a direct drill without moving the soil. And in the top of the soil profile, there's quite a bit of organic matter, as you can see. It's quite loose and crumbly on the top. Now if you compare that to where we've ploughed in our area to put plots in, the soil has slumped, a lot of the air has disappeared out of it, and it's basically not as strong as it is here. The disadvantage we get if we don't move the soil is we can get compaction. But basically what David's telling us is that we're doing a reasonable job. Because
the worms are doing a reasonable job.
The worms are doing quite a good job.
Yep.
And the soil below, where it is a little bit tighter, the roots are going through it.
Oh, fantastic! So it's breaking the clods up, doing the job for you.
Exactly. So we're not burning diesel. We're being more environmentally friendly.
You're not releasing the carbons.
Not releasing the carbon. We're locking up carbon by not moving the soil.
Exactly.
So that's all positive news, really.
Yeah. And do you want to add to that?
Yeah. So another little experiment we've got here is we've simulated about an inch of rain, so not a typical wet day, in a very short period of time. Put some blue dye in it, and we can see in that surface layer where we've got quite a high level of organic material, last year's crop residue. We've got quite a good even distribution, that's called infiltration, of the water in that top layer. But then also, because we're not cultivating and destroying things like worm channels, you can see here there's a worm tunnel from a previous year. We're not destroying that with cultivation, therefore water's allowed to infiltrate the soil through those pathways, but also using some of those root pathways. Now, cultivation will do the same job. We'll break up some of those clods. In a direct drill system, we're trying not to cultivate, and we're letting all natural processes such as earthworms and roots do that for us. just biology instead of steel, although steel can be a good option if we've got some bigger compaction issues down at depth. But at the moment, as Keith says, haven't got those issues on that profile we've pulled out with this forklift.
And when you've pulled a slice out there, you can actually see the layers, can't you?
Yeah, so you can see historically the cultivation layer. So before the direct drill system was implemented, we've probably had cultivation in the top 30 centimeters of soil, potentially sometimes a little bit deeper. And then we see this color change about here, and that's because we haven't previously inverted the soil, and therefore we haven't got that mixing of organic material and crop residues. And you can see even that much further down the profile, 40-50 centimeters, we've got little in the way of organic material incorporation. What we will have is, you can see some roots in there and earthworms pulling organic material down there.
I mean, Keith mentioned there weren't no rain today, but I think he's put the markers on it.
We're starting to get wet, aren't we?
We are getting wet.
Yes.
But thanks for your time. I appreciate that little discussion with me. And,
no problem.
And we carry it back with Keith, shall we?
Okay.
Who mentioned about the rain.
So the next, no more mention of rain. So the next area we're looking at, so within the wheat farming community, there's a whole range of choices of different wheats that farmers can grow. So you've got wheats that go to make bread, wheats to feed animals, wheat to make biscuits, and they're all what we call different varieties. So at the top of this display, we've got the range of bread making wheats that farmers can grow. And these two at the top, in the southeast of England, are two of the most commonly grown wheats. Skyfall and Zayat are two of the better bread making wheats. Lots of farmers in this part of the world grow these varieties. So if we move down a little bit, I'll pick out odd ones as we come down. So X-Days is a very disease resistant variety. Right. It's a group 2 bread maker rather than a group 1. You can still get a premium on it, so you can still sell it for reasonable money, but it's more disease resistant, so hopefully you can spend less money on disease control in it.
Gotcha. And obviously as you go down the line, it's more for animal feed, is it?
Yes, they are. As we go further down, we're coming into animal feed. So these in here is a good example. This Firefly is fairly widely grown in this part of the world, and this is a soft milling wheat used for biscuit making.
Oh, okay.
So that they have most wheats have a specific use that they're grown for. And further down, some of these are newer biscuit making wheat. And then, so if you look at the range, you've got a few at the top that are used for bread making. Down the line, from here downwards, they're all they're all feed wheats of different sorts. So most of the wheat.
It's quite a science when you look into it.
Oh yeah,
wheat is wheat.
Exactly, but you see, there's a lot of investment from different breeders of crops into breeding these varieties and bringing them forwards. And what they're aiming to do is either create more yield, or create better quality, or create better disease resistance, or all of those things. So they're trying to offer farmers a better route forward. Now the other thing that's coming forward in quite a big way, but more with barleys at the moment, is something called hybrids. So what they do is they combine the genetics of two different plant lines and then create something that's got the best of both, more vigour. So what they're aiming to do is to produce a more vigorous plant that will produce more yield and more. Now that's still in the early days. The barleys are really established and they're doing quite well. Hybrid wheats have not really taken off yet. Now when they do, this genetic side of the way that plants are grown will hopefully improve, and hopefully the direction we're going to go in is to be able to produce more wheat for less fertiliser and less spray. That's the aim going forward for most growers and most breeders. So
can I just stop you? I just want to check the camera because it's been raining.
So if
you can hold that for me.
That's why you want to stand this way, so the rain isn't blowing on it. Okay.
Fantastic. Anyway, sorry, we digress.
No, you're fine. So within this line, the way that farmers independently get to find out which varieties they should grow is that the varieties are put on what's called a recommended list. So every year there are new varieties that come along that are candidates to go on that list. So if we come down the line, I'm going to pick you out here we go. We've got two here. We've got a potential bread making wheat called KWS Grill, which is on the list, but KWS US, the breeder, have put it forward as a new variety they've bred that they're suggesting might be a potential bread maker. So that what will happen is that there'll be example fields of this grown throughout the country that will be harvested, the quality will be analysed, the yield, and then an independent group of a board will sit and decide whether they think farmers should grow it as a variety going forward, or whether they think it's not really much of an improvement over what we've already got.
But as you say, it's progress though, isn't it?
Exactly. So we're trying to move forward, and generally speaking, this progress is very slow.
Yeah.
The other thing I didn't mention is that traditionally, lots of milling wheats didn't used to yield as well as feed wheats. So farmers had a choice. They could grow a milling wheat that wouldn't yield very well, but they could sell it for a little bit more money, or they could grow a feed wheat that would yield a bit more, but they got a bit less price for it. Now what's happening is that's all merging together, except that you get occasional varieties like this one here called Skyscraper, LG Skyscraper, which is near the top. So you wouldn't get a premium for this variety, but in theory it should yield a bit better than the milling wheats.
Oh, fantastic.
And as you come down the line, you know that as far as we're concerned, down in the southeast, there aren't many outlets, many homes for feed wheats. There are not many people that use feed wheat. Most of the big animal feed compounders aren't in our part of the world.
No, we're mainly arable or apples or grapes.
Exactly, we are. So there aren't many feed wheats in this part of the world.
Vineyards.
Exactly.
Very big list now, isn't it? Vineyards are
exactly.
in Kent. Yes.
So hopefully what we've done is we've talked about the range of things we can offer you here today. We've got to offer farmers today to show people what we're doing in this part of the world. So we don't have a product to sell. None of these varieties. Nothing. In some ways, NIAB are sort of the policeman of the cereal world. We look at making sure that if a farmer buys a bag of seed wheat, that what's in that bag is what's on the label. So with our farm up at Cambridge, we grow plots of all these different wheats and then look at the purity and make sure it's actually what it says it is.
Oh, okay.
We have farmer members that we do work for, trials where we look at different things, different approaches to growing crops and see what that does, and then report back to the members what's happened and whether it was progressive, where it moved forward and improved the yield or not.
But that's great,
so
because you're offering a service then that the farmer can come to you and he says, right, I want to grow a particular wheat this year. Can you know my location? Can you advise me? Now I want a bread wheat more than a cereal wheat or a biscuit making or a feed wheat. Can you suggest a product that
the best way forward?
Right. Okay. So onwards and upwards. We go down the rows and we're moving into feed wheat now.
So they're basically feed wheats, and feed wheats are split into two different groups. They're either soft or hard milling, and they go to slightly different homes. There's slightly different feed qualities for different animals, but as I said, the southeast we don't really grow an awful lot of feed wheats. There are feed wheats in this part of the world. There are outlets. There are some big chicken farmers in this part of the world.
Obviously,
who buy quite big quantities of feed wheat, but overall, the biggest market for growers of wheat in the southeast is milling and biscuits.
Now, answer me a quick question there, because I can remember as a young lad walking through the countryside, the wheat was about 4 foot tall.
Yeah, these will get taller. What's happened this year is we've had a horrible dry April with frosts every night. So nothing was growing. If you'd come and looked at these plots 2 weeks ago, they were about 4 or 5 inches tall. They just sat there and didn't want to grow. I must admit, for this event, I was getting quite concerned that when everybody came round, we'd have nothing to show them other than these little yellow plants that really didn't want to grow. So if we came and looked at this in a month's time, you would find these wheats will be up here. So they've got a lot of growing to do, and they're late. It's a late season, so lots of things. I mean, I grow things in my allotment at home, and every year things come up and they grow. This year I've had to re-sow a lot of things because it's been so cold and horrible, nothing's wanted to grow.
Exactly. Well, let's hope this summer comes along sometimes.
Exactly. And really what we're looking at is the consequences of that cold, dry time.
And then it'd be too dry then,
exactly,
wouldn't it?
Exactly. Yeah,
Anyway, I appreciate what you told me this morning. That's a shame I couldn't come back in a couple of weeks' time, and because you're probably going to grab all this shortly, aren't you?
No, this will still be here. I mean, if we've got members who want to come and see these at a later date, because I actually quite like looking at them as the disease develops.
Yep.
So as these move on, what we'll do, half of these plots will be sprayed with fungicides to keep the disease out, and half will be left unsprayed. So we can actually compare them and see how much disease they get, which get the most, which get the least, and that's an assessment. But we also do that in plots that we'll take to harvest. So whereas your farmer will have his huge, great big combine harvester that he's paid £500,000 for, ours will take this little plot and combine that on its own, and then they'll tell me exactly how much yield we got from each of these, and then going forward we know exactly how much yield comes from every variety.
And you can multiply that by the acres in a field.
Exactly.
You know,
and going forward, it does give you a good idea of how that would have done this year. Now, the skill of the farmer is then in interpreting whether he can actually make that work on his farm next year and going forward, or whether the varieties he's growing now are more consistent and produce him a better income than switching to a new variety. And what a lot of farmers do is, rather than jumping from one variety to another all the time, is they learn how to grow a variety and do it really well, and they'll stay with that variety, especially if they can find a grain merchant or somebody that wants to buy that
particular,
you know, and they'll pay them more money for it.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you know, years gone past, as I remember, you had mixed farming, and you'd have cattle in one field one year and then the wheat in that same field. But obviously, you was just saying about obviously growing the same crop, same field, and same everything. Is that sustainable?
No, I mean, they do. Most farmers do have a rotation.
Sorry.
Most farmers do have a rotation, and that basically means that if you've got 10 fields, for example, you would move the crops around and grow different fields in different crops every year. So this field had all seed rape last year, so this year it's in wheat, and next year I know that Thomas is planning to grow spring barley in here. But what he'll also do, because he's not moving his soil and cultivating anymore, is he grows what we call cover crops. So after we harvest the wheat, he'll drill a mixture of different crops on the field to keep the ground covered through the winter.
And
give green cover.
That's it.
And the other thing that hopefully that does is it locks up all the nutrients that are in the soil and stops them all leaching out through the water and into the land drainage.
Fantastic.
And then into the water. And it just, you know, moving forward, what we're trying to do is to be environmentally responsible. To look at doing things as environmentally friendly as we can. But you know, lots of young farmers coming into the industry now, they want to embrace the new technology, they want to move forward, but we're taking on board all those new things alongside the traditional stuff that we know works. So hopefully, going forward, we'll still be able to make a living from producing food that people want to buy.
Unless the farmer sells his field for housing.
For housing. That's true.
And that is a big problem in the south east, isn't it?
It is.
You know, unfortunately, I'm used at my age seeing green fields. Now it's greenfield and housing
coming up everywhere, and it's very topical what you're asking me, because I walk the fields here for the farmer that farms the farm, and he's been offered an opportunity to put a crematorium on one of his fields. So it's needed, something that the community needs. So he's going to sell them some land to do that. I mean, what you say is very true. There are houses popping up everywhere in the South East, aren't there?
Unfortunately, there is. As I say, I do like seeing a bit of greenery.
Yeah, so do I.
Anyway, Keith, thanks ever so much.
Pleasure.
Now, you
Lovely.
did mention that perhaps in a month's time you'll be coming back. Perhaps we could do a follow-up video.
Yeah, of course we can. If you want
I'll
to.
give you my contact details.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And then perhaps we can have a morning talking about how the crops develop from then.
Brilliant. Yeah, we
That's
could.
fantastic.
That'd be good.
There's
Lovely.
my card and my number,
Pleasure.
and I appreciate your time today.
Lovely.
Okay, then.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.
Cheerio.
Well, there you go. Keith and his colleague has given us quite a good look on these crop situation. This is going to be a separate video now. Now, obviously, this is the end of the video, so it's going to be a part 2 or something like that on the show. But as Keith said, we should come back and see how these crops come up, and I'll sort of attach this video to the one in 2 months' time or whenever. As I say, don't forget to like and subscribe to the video. I would appreciate that. And see you again in the future. Cheerio for now.